All right, Abusia, it is unless one a year witness be about testify against a year a year Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, the body and a year Dennis Miracles Abuaje. Na say na it is Abusia Yoko to me akoma a year Dennis Miracles Abuaje so of a year 55 million Ghana cedis. Na Abusia Sansem no yen kan wie ye. Na the 72 hours time is have to just say yɛtumi afirizi ɛyɛ Dennis Miracles Abuajene assets including ɛyɛ ne houses ne bank account ɛyɛ freezy abusua nsɛm no dɔɔso nsɛm a kyerɛ sɛ ɛba abɔnten ɛne the frozen ɛyɛ asset of ɛyɛ Dennis Miracles Abuajene ho no abusua na ɛnyɛ easy sika twitwi deɛ ɔmo kyerɛ a egu account no mu deɛ abusua ɛsɛ wani na nsɛ sɛ meka ɛkyerɛw na wei na ɛyɛ saa witness yi aba abɔnten na allegedly ɔmo kyerɛ a ɔde ɛyɛ document akɔ mu ɛwɔ ɛyɛ yoko yes ɛde ato ɛyɛ Raymond akyɛ nim sɛ transfer bi ɛkɔ so ɛyɛ 19 million ɔno ɛna ɛde sika no ɛde ɛkɔ ɛyɛ Dennis Miracles Abuaje abusua ne fie we deɛ ma mekasa wa ma mekasa nyɛ tete sɛ deɛ bɛyɛ bɛte asɛm ne asiye ɛne sɛ ne nneɛma esi ɛkɔ ɛwɔ ɛyɛ Dennis Miracles Abuaje side no abusua latest update no ɛna abusua yɛn saka ya drop bi a yɛde ɛma mo yɛnkɔ na yɛntie na yɛnkyerɛ yɛadwen nsɛm a ɛyɛ witness yi ɛde aba abɔnten a ɛfa ɛyɛ Dennis Miracles Abuaje ho na sɛ wi abusua bɔmɔde asɛ yɛbɛkyerɛ yɛadwen bɔmɔde asɛ ɔbɛ like ɛde ama yɛn bɔmɔde asɛ ɔbɛ like ɛde ama yɛn ne deɛ no obu kwan so yɛda wase so wayɛ ne saa ɛde ama yɛn ɔbaa deɛ ɔnhyira ɔma n'adɔm no ɛnyɛ kɛseɛ ɛwɔ m so bɛmi deɛ agyi bɛfa sɛ konya wei so asɔ bibi a sɛ abusua sɛ wɔne twa video so ne deɛ kwan so ɔbɔde asɛ ɔbɛ subscribe like na waboa so ahyɛ for person bɛtie no ɛnya bi atie bɛmi deɛ agyi akyi ɛda m ase moma yɛnkɔ na yɛntie nsɛm a kyerɛ sɛ ɛtɔ dwa ɛha.
So one witness Abba testify against a former Dr. Bawumiani aide, friend Miracles Abuaje, 55 million Ghana cedis allegedly looted state funds yoku for arresting or airports. Yedi kanya Abba be breaking sa news no edi amamo. And rather, yoku a freezy yoku with the High Court order or freezy Miracles Abuaje ne asset. Now one witness waba aba be confirm say or the sika twitwiri die bi ekoko ma Miracles Abuaje ne one residence bi ɛwɔ ne side a saa sika no Miracles Abuaje na order ne say onfambre no ɛwɔ no ankasa ne fie insino witness with full evidence wa drop na the ababontin 119 million Ghana cedis bia or so the year investment abusuya waka sa ensem na or the latest evidence and as a full document the amayoko for so release the latest update on Miracles Abuaje ne investigations because now there is some shocking revelations behind Miracles Abuaje ne frozen assets no abusuya. There is much interesting moment ahead. Credits goes to TV3. Young 19 million Ghana cedis investment. Miracles Abuaje or this asikano any witness or testify against Miracles Abuaje with the proof and evidence. Abusia young
wider freeze covering accounts linked to one Gerald Appiah. Was said to be an accountant of this particular interministerial committee on decentralization that Dennis Miracles Abuaje was executive secretary of, and the company, there's a company called Hillside Piggery and Meat Processing Limited. Now, this Hillside Piggery and Meat Processing Limited, we understand Dennis Miracles Abuaje is linked to that company as its director. Right, but the order was granted on an application filed by the Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO. Now we're learning a bit more about what the investigators at EOCO are probing and have got some detail, exclusive detail for you here on Ghana Tonight. As we do know, he arrived from a trip to the UK. He was picked up by EOCO officials on this particular charge of the suspect, the suspicion they had, that's EOCO had, of the misappropriation of funds, misapplication, diversion, and theft of approximately 55 million in public funds. If you recall, when he was released from the EOCO custody, Dennis Miracles Abuaje said, look, there was no question about 55 million Ghana cedis. that Yoko asked him. Well, Yoko maintained their path on the investigations. The statement they issued earlier said they were being investigated for conspiracy to steal, number one, stealing and using public office for personal profit. Other alleged offenses include causing financial loss to the state, dissipation of public funds, defrauding by false pretenses, money laundering, as well as other suspected offenses. So this last part of this statement from Yoko, other suspected offenses, is a broad one. One that would rope in other offenses that they couldn't specifically state, apart from all of what they had mentioned about dissipation of public funds, defrauding by false pretenses, money laundering, and so on, causing financial loss to the state. Now, here's what we're learning today, and this is some exclusive detail we're getting from the documents that we have received exclusively here on Ghana Tonight. This is it. These are the three persons that Yoko is coming up against in court. The first respondent is Dennis Edward Abuaji, the former executive secretary of the Interministerial Committee on Decentralization. That's the Coordinating Committee on Decentralization. The second respondent, Gerard Appiah, is an accountant linked to the said transactions under investigation. Then the third respondent is Hillside Piggery and Meat Processing Limited, the company where Dennis Miracles Abuaji is said to be a director. That's like an official person also roped into this particular case. So these are the three persons Yoko is asking questions of in court. Now, this is it. What we're learning is that as a petition that was filed in March 2026, alleging financial and procurement irregularities during Miracles Abuaji's tenure as the executive secretary spanned between August 2022 and February 2025, Yoko investigating money laundering, causing financial loss to the state, and procurement breaches. Both Miracles and Gerald were arrested, cautioned, granted bail. Then there was some fictitious 5,872,500 contract awarded to Bimaba Enterprise for a district needs assessment and Galamsey report. Then this company never bid for or executed the contract. Its directors say the contract documents were forged. Now take a listen to this. This BMABA Enterprise, which according to the investigations of Yoko, they were awarded a contract which they describe as fictitious to the tune of 5,872,500. The directors of this company say they never bid for any contract for district needs assessment and a Galamsey report. So as to how their name as a company was roped in there and that they were awarded a contract, they said, look, they don't know anything about this. And that the documents that Yoko showed them were forged. Also, that this Interministerial Coordinating Committee on Decentralization paid this company, whose directors say they don't know anything about the contract, some 5,362,010 Ghana cedis, regardless of the directors of the company saying, one, they didn't know, and two, the documents being forged. So that's an area they were looking into. This same company funneled the money to procure Masters Limited. Bear this in mind. If you've been listening to how things have been playing out right from last year, when the Attorney General has been addressing the press on the modus operandi of some of the investigations that they are into, you would understand the trend of events, right? So this company is said to have funneled the money to procure Masters Limited and Zone Construction Limited. The same directors, no real services rendered. Then this scheme allegedly used to layer and disguise the stolen funds, according to Yoko's, this detail that we're getting from the court documents. So one, the company's director said, we don't know anything about this contract over 5 million awarded to us. Two, over 5.3 million paid. This money paid to this company with fictitious documentation then was used to procure another company same directors, no real services rendered. A witness has admitted, according to documents we have, to handling cash to Miracle Sabwaje at his Sphincter's home and wiring the rest to Hillside Piggery on Miracle Sabwaje's instructions. That's according to what Ioko is saying. Yes. Then, separately, there's some 19 million Ghana cedis in public funds placed in an investment without finance ministry approval. So there's an investment that was made, 19 million in public funds. The finance ministry's record did not support this, or approving a decision for this public funds to be moved into this investment account. 558,466 Ghana cedis in interest on that investment allegedly was diverted by Gerard Appiah, was the accountant at the time, via PNY Investment Limited. That's another company. So right now we're talking about this, about the fourth company right now with Miracle Sabwaje's knowledge. That's according to Ioko. 4.3 million released to GAPT for activities outside the Interministerial Coordinating Committee on Decentralization's mandate. GAPT has not accounted for the said money, 4.3 million. Ioko issued this administrative freezing directives 16th and 20th of July 2026 on the accounts of Miracle Sabwaje and Gerald and their properties. They applied to the court for confirmation order, and the court granted this freezing order. So this is the sequence of events, and this is what we're getting to know so far. This exclusive detail from what Ioko has been telling the courts regarding how Dennis Miracle Sabwaje's bank accounts and property, and that of Gerard as well, were frozen. And this is the detail that since morning a number of you have been feeding on. 7-bedroom residential property owned by Dennis Miracle Sabwaje in Latte. Then there's 2-bedroom residential property in the Sphincters Road area, that's in Sphincters, beg your pardon. Then there's residential apartments in Ajirigano, approximately 15 acres of land owned by Miracles in Latte. And there are 5 bank accounts. This is it. That's what Ioko detailed. That's what they found based on their investigation. This 7-bedroom residential property in Latte, 2-bedroom residential property in Sphincters, residential apartments at Jirigano, approximately 15 acres of land in Latte, the 5 bank accounts. Edem Senano is co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. Senano, appreciate you. Thank you for joining us. And when we started reporting this earlier, the MPP, some persons in there, not the party official position, but some persons in there say this is a selective application of the law. But from what we are seeing now, the Oko is on a path, is it not? And this is just probably the beginning of a long path of a lot more revelations as we're hearing, isn't it?
Well, I'd like to assume that due process is being followed. If they didn't have some substantive reason, it would not, in my mind, be justifiable to then say we are freezing any assets. It also tells a story because, on one hand, it's either that the allegations are being refuted, or else one would say you accept and you negotiate, you pay back. So it will be very interesting for us to get the exact facts. But to the extent that they are freezing property, clearly somebody believes there's a case to be answered. And at the moment, they're not sure that the individual is able to, pay back that sum of money. For me, it's important that all officers who are occupying public positions be cautious, because gradually the citizenry is becoming much more, alert to these issues. and we are going to continue demanding accountability, and increasingly so. So let's see how this turns out.
And so, no, there's a pathway that I just outlined there. This modus of establishing companies and then moving monies around allegedly, and as we've seen, this is not the first time we're seeing this particular modus being employed. At least in some of the investigations, the Attorney General mentioned, and we're seeing this playing out according to this information that IOCO has put out. About 4 or 5 companies are mentioned in this web, okay, that IOCO has just outlined. But we've not, at least so far, heard the last of this matter. But for the many people, others who are also commenting say, you know what, this is not the first time we're hearing an investigative body, either the Attorney General, IOCO, put out information about suspects. We get to know how much they own in terms of property and whatever they've been involved in. The matter then gets to court. There's some silence on it. Then people begin to ask what's going on, because this information I've just put out there obviously is getting people infuriated. A lot of people are reacting and emotionally destabilized because, look, all of this. But then after some time, there's some quiet, and there's really no end as to exactly how things are playing out in the cases being investigated. Do you also, share in that sentiment about these investigations into alleged acts of corruption, as we have seen either communicated in a press conference by the Attorney General and what we are seeing now with the IOCO?
I think substantively we want these issues to be, as it were, resolved in court. And yes, it is not too useful if you have these things in the public domain, yet they are not being, as it were, adjudicated in court. Because it leaves the impression that maybe somebody is just trying to grandstand, and make people look bad. But if the issue is substantively before court, that means there are charges that have been filed. Charges have been filed. The person has their day in court, and the public is able to hear what the charges are, what the responses are. And at the end of the day, you can draw a fair conclusion. I have insisted that when it comes to cases in court, unless there is a clear breach of the law where all of us can read and say that the Constitution says this or the law says that, and there's something happening that infringes on a law or the Constitution, we ought to hold the court system and the judicial processes sacrosanct and not begin to impugn, partisan political positions. So I'm not about to, whether it is NDC or NPP, begin to say, oh, this is is witch hunting and all that. No. See, when we begin to do that.
And Mesano, so on this matter, for instance, now we're based on this, we're getting to see how much is in his name as reported by IOCO. 7-bedroom, 2-bedroom residential apartment, and so on. I mean, there are those who have called for a lifestyle audit, a law on lifestyle audit, so that, if you see a public officer living beyond their means, there has to be a law that can kick in immediately, not after the person has left office. How about if they are never found out? How about if any public officer diverting public funds to their private use is never found out? Then the person gets to go. Okay, but in the absence of a law on lifestyle audit, so that when we all begin to see that, look, you're earning this much, we know, and then you're having to live beyond that, questions legitimately can be asked lawfully, is it not?
Well, yes, I would subscribe to all those who are advocating for that. It's a necessary tool in our space, including reverse burden of proof. Reverse burden of proof, so it's not up to the state or the prosecution, as it were, to adduce evidence that shows that something has gone wrong. You need to be able to demonstrate that your income sources allow you to be able to own all the properties, assets, and to engage in all the businesses or the transactions that you have engaged in. I think that, yes, a lifestyle, or what we call illicit enrichment law, as well as a reverse burden law, would help strengthen the anti-corruption fight as we see it. And I insist that the parties, both, whether NDC or NPP, should stop this witch hunting and political positioning. When a case has been investigated and facts have been adduced that show that something amiss has gone on, let's allow the legal frameworks and judicial systems to work. And if there is a problem, that individual has the right, together with the legal team, to appeal. So there's an appeals court, there's a Supreme Court. It allows us to examine all the facts and draw appropriate actions. But let's not begin to polarize and make political these processes. Let individuals answer for their tenure. That is what good leadership does.
And rightly so. And I appreciate you for this. Thank you for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. Demsena is the co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. He's also the chairperson of the African Union, that's advisory body on anti-corruption, joining us here on Ghana Tonight. And this is it. And this is it's something that we're keeping an eye on quite closely. In fact, based on the information that we have received so far, and exactly how IOCO is also pursuing this matter in the court of law regarding what they have gathered so far. This said fictitious over 5.8 million contract awarded to this company that its directors say they did not bid for this district needs assessment Galamsey report, but yet over 5.3 million Ghana cedis was paid regardless to the said company. Another Masters Limited and Zone Construction Limited, two companies procured by the monies paid to this BMABA, that's company. And this scheme, according to IOCO, was allegedly used to layer and disguise the stolen funds. And that's why you see the charge of the money laundering in there that was earlier mentioned. Then there is another one at this Hillside Piggery, and also how they are involved in it. They are the third respondent in this particular case. Now, look, this is one that we're keeping an eye quite closely on, and how this matter will play out in the court of law. Remember that the Attorney General had already indicated that some oral cases will continue to run and be heard in the court of law despite the legal vacation that the courts are on. So we'll keep an eye on this one.
So I was winning and some course so our political highway. So there is much interesting moments ahead. Miracles Abuaje, he is in hot water right now or there under any latest update on Miracles Abuaje, ne assets frozen, and matters arising. You ever drop in or Eddie Amam, ever master some pene, cocoa teaser, and some way in the mind.